and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja, and these are the headlines. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says Islamabad has told the United States that India is foiling efforts to bring peace to Afghanistan. Addressing the media in Multan, Qureshi reiterated that Pakistan wants peace in Afghanistan as it will benefit the entire region. He went on to say that India is usurping the rights of minorities as well as farmers. The foreign minister said that the EU Disinfo Lab has exposed the true face of India. In Afghanistan, 8 soldiers have been killed in a car bomb explosion that targeted an army outpost in the Nangarhar province. The Taliban have claimed responsibility for the attack. In India, authorities have blocked internet services in several areas surrounding New Delhi amid farmers' protest against the contentious farm laws. The farmers are observing a day-long hunger strike after a week of clashes with police that left 1 dead and hundreds injured. Tens of thousands of farmers have been camping on the outskirts of Delhi for over 2 months. The United States says dealing with Iran's escalating nuclear crisis is its early priority. Addressing a think tank, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said Iran is moving closer to having enough fissile material for nuclear weapons. Sullivan marked the come after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called upon Iran to comply with the 2015 nuclear deal. The global COVID-19 death toll has crossed 2.2 million, while more than 102 million people have been infected so far. Brazil has registered over 59,000 cases and more than 1,100 deaths in a day, with its fatality toll surging to 222,000. The United Kingdom has recorded over 1,200 new deaths since yesterday, as its toll has exceeded 104,000. Pakistan has registered over 2,100 new cases and 65 deaths in the last 24 hours, as its toll tops 11,600. And authorities say up to 30,000 fans a day will be allowed to attend the Australian Open due to the coronavirus pandemic. The Grand Slam gets underway next month in Melbourne. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says Islamabad has informed the U.S. that India is acting as a spoiler in the Afghan peace efforts. Addressing the media in Multan, Qureshi said Pakistan has facilitated the peace process and remains committed to working with the U.S. as a partner for peace. The foreign minister said a stable Afghanistan will lead to a regional development. He went on to say that Pakistan has sacrificed a lot in the war against terrorism. The EU Disinfo Lab, he said, has exposed the true face of India. Referring to the ongoing farmers' protest in India, he said that the Modi government is usurping the rights of the farmers as well as the minorities. At least 8 Afghan soldiers have been killed in a Taliban attack near a military base in the eastern Nangarhar province. A provincial council official said that the suicide bomber detonated an explosive-laden military vehicle in the Shizrad district. The Taliban have claimed responsibility for the blast, saying that the security forces suffered heavy casualties. Meanwhile, the Kabul police said twin blast killed 1 civilian and wounded 4 others in the capital, and 3 civilians have been killed in a blast in the Kandahar city. Afghanistan has been embroiled in a deadly wave of violence amid the ongoing intra-Afghan talks in Doha. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization says ISIS militants' movement into Afghanistan is a big threat for the region. SCO Secretary General Vladimir Norov said that these fighters are relocating from Iraqi and Syrian conflict zones into northern Afghanistan. Speaking at the webinar, Norov expressed concern over the worsening situation regarding security in the border of the regions of Afghanistan. Norov warned that the terrorists use technology to manage and recruit militants in the country. He praised Islamabad's role in the ongoing peace process while these militants continue to attack Afghanistan and Pakistan. The official assured that the full support of the SCO for lasting peace in the war-torn country. Pakistan has once again rejected India's claim that Jammu and Kashmir is its integral part. Speaking in the UN General Assembly, Pakistan's delegate said that India has no claim on Jammu and Kashmir other than the occupier. Jawad Ali was responding to the Indian delegate's reaction at Pakistani Ambassador Munir Akram's speech, which exposed New Delhi's violations in occupied Kashmir. Jawad Ali said India wants to crush the indigenous Kashmiri struggle for their right to self-determination. He said India is not secular anymore and its minorities are not safe. India has blocked internet services in areas surrounding New Delhi amid a protest by farmers against new laws. The Union Home Ministry says services will remain suspended until the 31st of January to maintain public safety. Meanwhile, the farmers are observing a hunger strike a week after the clashes with the police left one dead and injured hundreds. Farm leaders say the day-long strike will show the Modi government that the protesters are overwhelmingly peaceful. They said that the event will spread the values of truth and non-violence. Tens of thousands of farmers camped on the outskirts of the capital, Delhi, for more than 2 months. They are demanding a complete rollback of the controversial agriculture reforms. The United States says dealing with Iran's escalating nuclear crisis is its early priority. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said this while addressing a think tank virtually. Sullivan said that Iran is moving closer to having enough fissile material for a nuclear weapon. He said that the United States aims to establish some of the parameters around the program that have fallen away over the past 2 years.
From our perspective, a critical early priority has to be to deal with what is a escalating nuclear crisis as they move closer and closer to having enough fissile material for a weapon. And we would like to make sure that we reestablish some of the parameters and constraints around their program that have fallen away over the course of the past 2 years.
Sullivan's remark come after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called on Iran to comply with the 2015 nuclear deal. Moving on, Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a law extending the New START treaty with the United States. Moscow's parliament earlier voted to ratify the extension. In a statement, the Kremlin said that the signed legislation extends the Nuclear Arms Control Pact by 5 years. It said the agreement was concluded after the exchange of diplomatic notes with the United States. Moscow said that the move maintains transparency in bilateral relations and supports global strategic stability. Meanwhile, the United States Department said that Washington aims to finalize the procedures on the extension by the 5th of February. China's third-generation nuclear reactor has been put into commercial operation. This makes China one of the leading countries in nuclear technology. The Fuxing No. 5 nuclear power unit has been constructed by the National Nuclear Cooperation. The reactor adopted the Hualong-1 technology independently developed by China with more than 30 years of research experience. Project Commissioning Chief Zhao Hao said that the reactor's design service is life 60 years. The construction of the reactor, involving nearly 200,000 people, kicked off in May 2015. The global death toll from COVID-19 has crossed 2.2 million with more than 102 million infections. In the last 24 hours, Brazil has registered over 1,100 new deaths and 59,000 cases. More in this report.
In the global fight against the pandemic, rich nations are trying to acquire as many vaccine shots as possible at the expense of developing countries. American drug maker Novavax is set to produce up to 150 million COVID-19 vaccine doses per month, as interim data showed it's shot to be 89% effective. Colombia says it will begin a vaccination campaign in February after reaching deals with Moderna and Sinovac Biotech. Meanwhile, in the U.S., the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has administered nearly 28 million doses of vaccine so far. Top U.S. health expert Dr. Anthony Fauci says the variant circulating globally will become more dominant in the U.S. by spring. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden says Congress needs to take immediate action on his $1.9 trillion COVID relief proposal.
It's not only that people will be badly hurt if we don't pass this package, in terms of increased rate of death, in terms of poverty, a whole range of things. But we will also be hurt long-term economically. We need to make these investments so the economy can grow the remainder of this year and next year.
The European Commission says it is not triggering the safeguard clause to block vaccine exports from the bloc to Northern Ireland after widespread condemnation of the move. However, Brussels has adopted new measures making vaccine exports subject to authorization. Italy has joined France and Switzerland in announcing that Moderna's shipments for February will miss expectations. Meanwhile, France has reported more than 75,000 fatalities since the pandemic began. It is now closing its borders to countries outside the European Union. French officials are expressing anger and disappointment over the vaccine shortages as cases spiral out of control.
On est organisé, on est prêt.
We're mobilized, we're ready to welcome vulnerable people, except that we don't have the vaccines. Here, we're in a fully equipped center, but an empty one. And we're of course angry because for 15 days, we've been mobilized to put up the center, to structure it, the supply chain, to follow the extremely rigorous and precise health protocols.
Meanwhile, the WHO has called on the world to use vaccines fairly and effectively to ensure more people can be inoculated. And a team of WHO experts investigating the origins of COVID-19 paid a visit to a hospital in the Chinese city of Wuhan. It was one of the main hospitals treating coronavirus patients in the early stages of the epidemic.
Pakistan's Civil Aviation Authority has extended travel restrictions on Category C countries till the 28th of February. The countries include South Africa, the United Kingdom, Brazil, Ireland, Portugal, and the Netherlands. The authority says the travelers from these countries will be allowed if the National Command and Operations Center allows. The restrictions are followed by the increasing number of cases reported in these countries during the second wave of COVID-19. Meanwhile, the Minister of State for Parliamentary Affairs said Pakistan will receive its first tranche of 500,000 vaccines from China on Sunday. The country has recorded another 65 deaths from COVID-19 overnight, raising the toll to 11,623. China has launched the second type frigate for Pakistan Navy at Hudong Zonghua shipyard. Pakistan's naval officials were present at the launching ceremony in Shanghai. Naval Overseer Commodore Asfar Humayun said that the indication of new warships will enhance Pakistan's maritime defense and deterrence capabilities. In an interview, Pakistani Naval Chief Admiral Amjad Khan Niazi said the frigates will significantly contribute in maintaining regional peace and security. He said the new types of warships will be some of the most technologically advanced platforms of Pakistan's Navy service fleet. Pakistani Navy has contracted the construction of 4 Type 504 AP frigates from China since 2017, while the first type was launched in August 2020. The Joint Turkish-Russian Monitoring Center is starting observing the ceasefire in the Nagorno-Karabakh region. In a statement, Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said the Turkish general and 38 personnel will work at the center. After 6 weeks of fighting, Azerbaijan and Armenia signed a Russia-brokered ceasefire for Nagorno-Karabakh in November. The Russian peacekeepers were also deployed to the region under the deal. The region is internationally recognized as a part of Azerbaijan, but mainly populated by ethnic Armenians. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, Prime Minister Sylvestre Ilunga Ilunkamba has resigned after the colony's parliament voted him out. The presidency said on Twitter that Ilunga had taken note of the evolution of the current political situation. A presidency spokesperson quoted Ilunga as saying that he has drawn the consequences of the developing political situation. The move will now enable President Felix Tshisekedi to appoint the prime minister, supported by a new parliamentary majority. In Somalia, 5 al-Shabaab militants are killed and several others wounded after an army operation in the southwestern region of Bay. The operation by the Somali National Army took place outside the strategic town of Dinsur. A senior official said that the militants were planning attacks against the government forces. Meanwhile, authorities say U.S. airstrikes killed several senior al-Shabaab commanders in southwestern Bukul region. In Italy, President Sergio Mattarella says he believes the collapsed coalition could still be revived. This follows the resignation of Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte, who is now acting as a caretaker. Mattarella has asked the lower house speaker Roberto Fico to mediate between the estranged parties and report back. Speaking to the media, he said it is necessary to set up a government as soon as possible. He said Italy was being severely tested by a health, economic, and social emergency. Meanwhile, the right-wing opposition has called for early elections to resolve the country's political crisis. At least 10 people have died and as many are injured after 2 vehicles collided in India's northern Moradabad city. Police said the injured have been shifted to the hospital. They said that the incident took place when a truck, bus, and another vehicle collided due to poor visibility among dense fog. Police and rescue workers rushed to the spot to rescue the survivors and recover the bodies. Indian roads are among the world's deadliest, with nearly 148,000 people killed in more than 460,000 accidents in 2017 alone. Pakistani philanthropist Bilqis Eidi has been declared the Person of the Decade by an international organization. Eidi had been nominated by Impact Hallmarks along with the United Nations Human Rights Rapporteur Yang Hee Lee. Eidi heads the Bilqis Eidi Foundation, where she has spent over 6 decades serving humanity in need. Her charity has saved thousands of unwanted children at the Eidi homes and centers across the country. She has already received various national and foreign awards, including the Hilal-e-Imtiaz and the Lenin Peace Prize. In Pakistan, a motorcade of over 50 Harley-Davidson bikers, including foreign riders, has arrived in Balochistan's provincial city of Gwadar. Riders from Harley-owned groups Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi chapters participated in the rally. The locals warmly welcomed the participants of the rally as they completed a 650-kilometer run in less than 12 hours. Meanwhile, a contingent of folk dancers performed on the streets to greet the participants in their own style. Participants will play a cricket match at the newly constructed cricket stadium in Gwadar. The Europe bears are burnt of the economic impact on the wake of COVID-19, with 92 million people already in poverty. A UN Special Rapporteur has warned that Europe's poverty figures could peak in autumn 2021. More in this report.
COVID-19 is taking its toll on the world, causing deaths, illnesses, and economic despair. And Europe is no exception. United Nations Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty, Oliver de Schutter, has warned that millions of people in the EU still live in poverty.
Today, we still have 92 million people in poverty, more than 1/5 of the European population, and even more troublesome, we have a growing number of working poor, people who work but are paid too low wages and thus are at risk of poverty. 20 million workers in the EU, 9% of people who are working poor, and that is extremely problematic.
De Schutter says poverty affects 20% of the European Union's citizens. He said the pandemic has also increased inequalities.
We need more recommendations to have progressive taxation schemes. We need more recommendations to ensure that wages increase in line with productivity gains. We need, in other terms, the European semester framework to become much more social and to have a better balance between the economic and the social in the European governance system.
UN rapporteur De Schutter is expected to present his final report at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva in June 2021.
An airport for flying cars will thrust the central England city of Coventry into the future later this year. The project is aimed at demonstrating how air taxis will work in urban centers in the years to come. More about this futuristic airport in this report.
Urban Airport, a British-based startup, has partnered with car giant Hyundai to develop the infrastructure. It will come into play when flying cars take to the skies and transport people and goods around.
With UK government backing and Hyundai Motor Group's backing, we'll be realising the first fully operational urban airport in the world, actually, in Coventry later this year. And that's really exciting because Coventry is a city centre location, so it's a real urban location, and it's well connected by road, pedestrian connectivity, but also rail.
Urban Airport was selected by a government program aimed at developing zero-emission flying and air vehicles. It won a $1.65 million grant to help fund the temporary installation of the airport in Coventry city centre.
And so with government mandates in the UK of carbon net zero by 2050 and in other countries even earlier than that, I think we need to start to accelerate the migration to more sustainable modes of transport. And whilst electric vehicles are coming, finally, the infrastructure to support electric vehicles has been lagging, and we're kind of playing catch up.
From November, visitors to Coventry will be able to see what a flying car airport looks like. They will see a passenger-carrying drone and an operational electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle on the landing pad.
The new U.S. administration says it will review its trade deal with China signed in January 2020. Former President Donald Trump signed the Phase 1 trade agreement with the Chinese President Xi Jinping, easing a trade war. At a news briefing, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said all national security measures by the former administration are under review. Psaki said Biden administration is focused on approaching relations with Beijing from a position of strength. She said Washington will coordinate and communicate with its allies about how to work with China. The trade deal aimed to boost Beijing's purchases of U.S. agriculture and manufactured goods, but fell far short in 2020. The International Monetary Fund says China's forceful resumption of its economic activities amid the pandemic has contributed to growth. It added China's effective containment of pandemic and central bank liquidity support have also contributed to the growth. IMF's managing director Kristalina Georgieva said that these reasons, China's economy is projected to grow by over 8% in 2021. In an interview, Georgieva noted that China has also contributed to other economies in the world. She said China's exports are boosted as the country stay committed to ensuring prosperity for its people. Georgieva added that by the end of 2023, the IMF will increase the shareholding of dynamic economies, including China. It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.